Good morning, and we are in section 89 today. We'll read half of it today and half of it tomorrow. In the Come Follow Me manual, it just starts off. When elders in the school of prophets first heard Joseph Smith read the word of wisdom, they immediately tossed their pipes and plugs of chewing tobacco into the fire. They wanted to show their willingness to obey the Lord. Perhaps you have already tossed some of your life. Uh, from your life substances the word of wisdom warns against. But what else can we learn from the revelation? Well, we can think of the revelation as a principle with promise, enduring truths that guide decision making. I like that. I like the way that they talk about what principles do you find that can guide your decisions? And what blessings does the Lord promise? We will look at that more tomorrow, I think, than today. And how has he fulfilled these promises, and those promises in your life? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Um, what have you, what example have you seen of evils and designs in the hearts of conspiring men related to the word of wisdom, which is verse 4? Um, in addition to this revelation, what has the Lord given to help you avoid or overcome these evils? Now, I think in today's world, we've got loads of things. Um, as I mentioned yesterday, I remember getting on buses and it just being filled with smoke um, from people smoking. Um, Tobacco, chewing tobacco is probably, well, certainly not here, is not used hardly at all, and I doubt it's continued to have a great interest in most people's lives. Um, and so I do think, at least in that way, a lot of things have gone the way of, but it does seem that they just replace it with something else, you know. Um, but as we talk about evil designs in the hearts of conspiring men, uh, a few things come to mind. First of all, it does seem like there's always a report coming out about this or that benefit that they may find. Um, in fact, I find it interesting that some will say, "Oh well, if you drink in moderation." So basically, some of the science is like, "Oh look, it's good for your heart um, if you drink so much." And I'm going, so is exercise and proper fruit juices and or fruit and vegetables, which are all in the Word of Wisdom. And also, um, it's like saying that they found that if you hear a gunshot every single day, you're it'll get your heart racing and it's good for your heart, but it doesn't mean that that's a good thing to do all the time, uh, because that same thing that's supposed to be good for your heart, uh, drinking alcohol has also been the cause of. I know that in one study in the 80s, 1980s, it was estimated that more people had died uh, in by drink driving and alcohol related deaths in the U.S. alone than all other U.S. Citizens in both world wars and the Civil War combined. And so you're saying, oh yeah, something that has killed more people than all the wars have is um, good for your heart. I'm going, well, maybe not. You see how concentrating on something like that can overlook some things that are obviously not good. Also, I can't say it's always true, but it does seem people who have left the church, one of the first things they do is pick up some habit from the word of wisdom. It seems almost invariably that somebody will start drinking or smoking or something else as if that is a freedom that they can now do or something like that. I don't understand it myself. If the word of wisdom is a word of wisdom, still a word of wisdom, and it still means something. In fact, I'll see people who will take some of these substances and then they'll spend so much time. So they're taking something that is not good for them in the first place. It's been shown not to be good for them for the first place. And then they'll spend ages trying to make sure that they don't eat too much of some sort of cereal or too much of or or whatever they have to do on a health kick. And I'm going, why are you doing that when you already know some of the things that you shouldn't be doing and you'll do it anyway because now you're not a member of the church? Um, sorry, that's a rant. I shouldn't do that. Um, but it is just really interesting that that's one of the things that comes up. What does this revelation teach you about the Lord? Well, that He cares about um, us and our bodies, not just our spirits. Um, how does the word of wisdom relate to Doctrine and Covenants 29:34-35? Wherefore, verily I say unto you, all things unto me are spiritual, and not at any time have I given you a law which is temporal, neither any man nor children of men, neither Adam your father, whom I have created. Behold, I give unto him that he should be an agent unto himself, and I give unto him a commandment, but not a temporal commandment give I unto him. For my commandments are spiritual, and they are not natural, nor temporal, neither carnal nor sensual. So I think it's very important that we put that um, in perspective. And this question, what are you prompted to do to better care for your body? And it doesn't matter if it's actually in these, you can be prompted to do something better, just to eat better or whatever. You may have had opportunities to explain to others why you live the word of wisdom, and you may have more opportunities in the future. Consider how you might use these opportunities to testify of the Savior and the sacredness of your bodies and other spiritual truths. Now, I think, notice what it says, opportunities to testify of the Savior, not opportunities to um, extol the virtues of the word of wisdom. Let's find what opportunities of testifying of the Savior through these things, not concentrate on oh, you can or can't do this. Oh, you're not allowed to do this. In fact, I can't. Don't really like when people say, "I'm not." You're not allowed to do this. Like it's not a choice. It is a choice, and it's a choice that has really served me and my health for years. Um, and my pocketbook from the way I've seen people spend money on alcohol and tobacco. Anyway, so I did want to go to one other reading, but I'm not sure if I want to now. But I'll go there now, and then we'll get into it. So this one was the one that we started reading, and it just goes through a little bit of how in like this episode in Whitney's store occurred in the middle of the massive transformation within the Western culture. In 1750, personal cleanliness and hygiene were infrequent. Haphazard practices mostly concerned with the wealthy and aristocratic. Thought that was interesting. And by 1900, um, regular bathing had become routine for a large portion of the population, especially in the middle class, um, who adapted gentility as an ideal. Tobacco spitting shifted from being publicly acceptable practice among most segments of the population to becoming seen as filthy habit beneath the dignity and polite society. Um, kind of talked about that yesterday, I think. Um, and then it sets the scene of the School of the Prophets, um, and points out that Joseph Smith was a non-tobacco user. Um, so he would be able to see this from the viewpoint. I mean, he lives with these people and he's seen what they do. I mean, growing up seeing these things around him. He and Emma lived in the Whitney store, and the task of scrubbing the spittle from the hardwood fell upon her. She may have complained of being asked to perform this thankless task, but there was also more practical consideration. She could not make the floor look decent. Brigham Young recalled, "We don't we don't have a record that says this is exactly what happened, but it has been tradition that she complained about the stains on the floor." And of course, this is what Brigham Young recalled. The stains were impossible to get out. Um, so I'm not going to go into all of that, but you can see how that would be in our society today. Just the thought of people spitting on the floor makes us cringe a little bit anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. Strong drink. What I think is interesting is there had to be um, a lot to reform on this. Drinking like tobacco chewing was clearly gotten out of hand for centuries. Nearly all Americans had consumed large quantities of alcoholic beverages, such as their much like their European counterparts. Puritans called the alcohol the good creature of God, a blessing from heaven to be imbibed in moderation. Um, Alcohol was consumed at virtually every meal, in part because the unpurified water of the time was so unhealthy. Home-brewed beer was a favorite, and after 1700, British American colonists drank fermented peach juice, hard apple cider, and rum, either imported from the West Indies or distilled from molasses made there. But 1770 per capita consumption distilled spirits alone, to say nothing of beer or cider, stood at 3.7 gallons per year. The American Revolution only exacerbated anyway, I can't say that. This reliance on alcohol. Um, I don't want to read all this right now, but basically, there's just a lot in here. There was a place in here that mentioned um, that you'd have men, women, and children drinking uh, these things. And then, as early as 1784, the Quakers and the Methodists were advising their members to abstain from all hard liquor and avoid participation in its sale and manufacture. A more aggressive temperance movement took hold among the churches in the early decades of the 19th century. Alcohol became viewed more as a dangerous temper, and less as a gift from God. So you can see how this has affected them. The word of wisdom also came down against alcoholic beverages. I'm just going to read a little bit before that. Precisely because alcohol reform was so often discussed and debated, the saints needed a way of educating which options were right. Besides rejecting the use of tobacco, word of wisdom also came down against alcoholic beverages, inasmuch as any man drinketh wine or strong drink among you, behold, it is not good, neither meat in the sight of your Father. Nevertheless, it required time to wind down the practice that were so deeply ingrained in family tradition culture, especially fermented beverages of all kinds were frequently used for medicinal purposes. The term strong drink certainly included distilled spirits such as whiskey, um, which thereafter the Latter-day Saints generally shunned. They took a more moderate approach on the milder alcoholic beverages like beer and pure wine of the grape vine of your own make, which we'll get to in a bit. So in 1821, I'm just skipping a little bit here. Um, The Lord inspired Heber J. Grant to call on the saints to live the word of wisdom into the letter by completely abstaining from all alcohol, tea, coffee, tea, and tobacco. Today, church members are expected to live this higher standard. So hot drinks. American temperance reformers succeeded in 1830s in no small part by identifying a substitute for alcohol, i.e. coffee. Um, and then it just talks about coffee and how in 1830 reformers persuaded the U.S. Congress to remove import duty on coffee, which then made it the same price as a cup of whiskey. So whiskey's sales do decline and coffee comes up. I always thought it was coffee was more drunk because of rebellion against tea. Um, the tea tax, the um, Boston Tea Party, and things like that. But this sounds like it's more a strategy to replace strong drink, which is interesting. It's a new thing that I never really thought about, and it's interesting to put it in that perspective. A few radical reformers, such as Sylvester Graham and William A. Alcott, preached against the use of any stimulants whatsoever, including coffee and tea. So it's not just the saints. The Word of Wisdom rejected the idea of the substitution for alcohol. Hot drinks, which the Latter-day Saints understood to mean coffee and tea, are not for the body or the belly, the Revelation explained. Instead, the Revelation encouraged consumption of basic staples of the kind that sustain life for millennia. The Revelation praised all wholesome herbs and explained that all grain is for the use of man and of beast, and the staff of life. Um, all of this actually should be in tomorrow's reading, so I'm kind of going to do it in a different way today. Um, I'm going to go through this a little bit, and then I'm probably going to just do the introduction and then get into the meat of it tomorrow. I was going to split it equally, but I'm reading through some of this. So, in keeping with earlier revelation endorsing the eating of meat, the word of wisdom reminded saints that the flesh of beasts and the fowls was given for the use of man with thanksgiving, but added the caution that meat was to be used sparingly and not to excess. Latter-day Saints who learn of the American health reform movements in the 1820s may wonder how the movements relate to the word of wisdom. Did Joseph Smith simply draw upon ideas already existing in his environment? Such concerns are unwarranted. Remember that many early Latter-day Saints who took part in temperance societies viewed the word of wisdom as inspired counsel adapted to the capacity of the weak and the weakest of saints who are or can be called saints. Moreover, the revelation has no exact analog in literature of its day. Temperance reformers often tried to frighten their hearers by linking alcohol consumption with a host of horrific diseases or social ills. The word of wisdom offered no such rationale. Strong drink, the Revelation says, is simply not good. Similarly, spare explanations are given for injunctions against tobacco and hot drinks. We have tried many times in the church to say, oh, look, there's this report. In fact, I think I've said a few things just now, but in the actual revelation, as we'll see, it doesn't make it like, oh, here, this is X, Y, and Z why you shouldn't do these. Just as it's not good, it's not what the Lord wants you to do. And it'll be best to follow these promptings. Instead of arguing from a position of fear, the word of wisdom argues from a position of confidence and trust. The revelation invites hearers to trust in God who has the power to deliver great rewards, spiritual and physical, in return for obedience to divine command. Those who adhere to the word of wisdom, the Revelation says, shall receive health in their navel, marrow in their bones, and shall find wisdom and great treasures of wisdom and knowledge, even hidden treasures. These lines link body to spirit, elevating care for the body. and uh, for the body to a level of religious principle. We don't need to try to prove everything scientifically. That's being done anyway, really, um, on all accounts. But it's not there for that. It's a religious principle, and especially in the end, some overlap between the word of wisdom and the health reform movement of the 19th century is to be expected. This was a time of refreshing, a moment in history where light and knowledge were pouring down from heaven. On the night Joseph Smith was visited by the angel Moroni for the first time in the fall of 1823, 10 years earlier, um, than what is happening here. 9.5 years, I guess, but to be exact. But the angel quoted a line from the book of Joel and said, "It is about to be fulfilled. I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh." So this lets us know, insofar as temperance reform made people less dependent on addictive substances, prompting humility and righteous action, the movement surely was inspired by God. That which is of God inviteth and enticeth to do good continually. The Book of Mormon stated, rather than concerning ourselves with cultural overlap, Latter-day Saints can joyously contemplate how God's Spirit touched so many, so widely, in such with such force. And I think that's a great way to see it, and to see a lot of things spiritually. When you see people uh, embrace different truths in their cultures, we should be able to contemplate those things. And we've already read a little bit about this. Soon after receiving the word of wisdom, Joseph Smith appeared before the elders of the school of the prophets and read the revelation to them. The brethren did not have to be told what the words meant. They immediately threw the tobacco pipes to the fire. One of the participants in the school recalled, since that time, the inspiration of the word of wisdom has been proven many times over in the lives of the saints, has been proven many times over in the lives of the saints. And I believe that strongly. I have many people who will share their um, experiences of how it has affected their lives. Its power and divinity cascading down through the years. In some ways, the American health reform movement has faded from view. The word of wisdom remains a light to light our way. We read quite a few scriptures just in this um, thing here, and I really meant to get into the actual Doctrine and Covenants 89, but we'll do that tomorrow. And we've got more scriptures to learn about as well. But I think, as something that the church is known for, I thought learning a little more about the word of wisdom and its impact has been worth it. And I hope you have a nice day, and we'll see you tomorrow.